All right, welcome to another Zam Jam, where we are exploring the best practices of building beautiful products with Zeplin. I'm Matt Larson, an agency success manager here at Zeplin, and joining me today, we have Michaela Banks, visual designer at Bottle Rocket, and Michael Chu, creative director at Ramotion. Michaela, Michael, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Guys, we're gonna have a great discussion today, cover a lot of topics. One of the things, so prior to my role here at Zeplin, I was a product manager for a time. And one of the things that I found was just getting everybody on the same page is often a lot more challenging than it seems. Michaela, maybe talk a little bit about how you're doing that on your team and maybe some of the challenges you've experienced around that.
Sure. So I've been at Bottle Rocket for about 3 years now, but what comes to mind is the first project I was on when I joined the company. So I think as a new designer, I had a hard time remembering some of the design terms and vocabulary. So what really helped me was the comments in Zeppelin. So whenever I had a client refer to a component on the screen, I knew exactly what they were talking about. It also helped me communicate with devs as well, because sometimes devs would also use different terms for components. So calling that out with comments, as well as recording things in the timeline and in notes was super helpful. So regardless of whatever we called something on the screen, as long as we could call it out with a comment or add a note, we all were on the same page in that regard. So it was really great because it kind of bridged that confusion and cleared that up for us to better communicate with each other.
Nice. So regardless of whatever background or functional language people were speaking, you had a set of visual designs that you could communicate within that context.
Yes, it was great and super helpful.
Who are the types of people that are collaborating on your project? How are you using Zeplin? Is it internally mostly, or who are the types of people that are in collaborating with you in typical Bottle Rocket projects?
Yeah, so typically on a project, we have obviously our internal team. So we have a project manager, the developers, QA, and then a strategist and designer. We call them experience architects now, though, for strategists. So usually those are the people that are working on the Zeppelin project and have their eyes on it. But a lot of times we also welcome in the client to take a look at what we're doing. So that way they can leave their own comments and feedback as well. Usually that's just one touch point person on the client side, but sometimes they'll tag other members of their team on their side to kind of get their eyes on it as well. Or we might get a final approval by the CEO, might look at it every once in a while and see if they like the direction we're going in. But overall, yeah, mainly our internal team has eyes on it and we all collaborate on there.
Okay. Michael, how about you at Ramotion? What's the typical breakdown of collaborators on a project? How's everybody getting involved there?
Yeah, sure. So we are agency and we help fast growing startups and like established businesses to build a consistent digital presence. And keeping in mind that we have clients of different size, so the team structure vary, and it can be like one guy from the client side and let's say project manager, designer, and developer on our side, or it can be a team of like up to 5 or even more designers on our end, a couple of designers on the client side when it comes to enterprise companies. And we need to have a kind of a source of truth. So everyone knows that this is the final stuff. And so keeping in mind that different companies use different products. So Sketch, Figma. So we need to have it, get it married somewhere. And that's why, Zeppelin, for some of the clients and for our internal projects, by the way, is this kind of a source of truth.
Okay. So it sounds like lots of different clients using lots of different tools, but
yeah.
having one place to kind of bring designs that are finalized, ready for development is how Zeppelin's fitting into your project lifecycle. Does that sound right?
Yeah, if it's acceptable from the client side. So of course, big companies like enterprises, they have own security and policy, etc. So we recommend using something like that. Like we recommend using Zeplin, and if it's possible, yeah, we start fitting in with all the screens and trying to have it as a one source of truth. Some of the clients, they already use Zeplin, by the way, and we just connect to that team and we continue delivering there.
Nice. Okay. On that point, there's a lot of, like you mentioned, there's a lot of different stakeholders, internal, external, coming in to view things. Michaela, at Bottle Rocket, how are you guys kind of organizing your Zeplin workspace, just to make it, like you said, it's this tool that you can use to communicate whether you're sitting next to somebody or not. Any tips that you found in organizing your Zeplin workspace that make it easier to communicate across all those different teams and stakeholders?
Yeah, I think Zeppelin has a lot of tools to kind of mark different flows. So you guys have the tags, which I really loved. I think when you're a designer, you run into the issues of having redesigns. So there's things always changing. And also there's also like points in a design where you have, current state, future state, the in-between state that they want to get done, like in the middle of those two. And so being able to tag and separate out your columns into different sections is a really good way of organizing that. So when the client's looking at it, they know we didn't forget about the future state. But when also devs are looking at it, they know, don't worry about that, just focus on the current state or what's going to come right after that. So having it organized by those sections and also by those tags really has helped our team a lot to make sure that we're all on the same page there. And also, of course, just having notes in that timeline that you guys offer as well. So I can mark whenever I merge something in or upload something to Zeplin, I can say, this is for a future state. Don't worry about this for right now. So really great tools there to keep stuff organized and where people can see what they need to focus on most first. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. The last thing you want is the development team to be like, wait, what are all these screens?
Yeah.
I just want to, as a developer, I want to jump in and know what I need to work on right at that moment. So having that flexibility to filter down and allow some people to focus on certain screens and other people to look into the future and see others. Yeah. Any other, Michael, what about at Ramotion? Or any tips on how you guys are organizing your Zeplin workspace?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. We also use tags, and it's very helpful and powerful. But also the problem which we define, working. So we have both design and development capacities, right? So and we need to get those two worlds married somehow. So when you change something on a design side, sometimes there is a ton of different small things which you fix here and there. And on the one hand, we understand that we need to share that with the development team, and we need to write down this, commit details. But actually, sometimes it takes us, a long time to write down everything. So here is a hack, if you wish. So we use the screencast tool. So this is like a Loom, which we're like, and we also tried a Cloud app. So they both allows you to record a screencast. And when you're committing and you update from design side, you can just take this link to the screencast and paste it in write down some basic comments and paste this link to the screencast right in Zeplin. And a developer can actually watch the film, what had happened, and the development team understand what changed. And from our side, the design team spends just like 10 minutes or 15 minutes to express everything, all the changes. And this is a huge time saver for us.
Oh, cool. So it sounds like you're using that in the version history. Like if a designer's committing a new
exactly
designs, then in that commit message, instead of just saying changed font, changed whatever, and spending a lot of time going through all the changes, you'll just do a quick Loom video to highlight all those changes and then upload that link. That makes sense. I think,
Exactly.
back to the point we made earlier, everybody's often using different language, referring to triangle thingies and hamburger buttons, and if you can just see it, a picture's worth 1,000 words, right? So if you can see it or watch a video, that everything kind of comes through more clearly. That's a cool idea. What about Michael, from your perspective? Obviously, you guys are working with a lot of different clients. What have you done to kind of create consistency and efficiency across all the projects that you're working with and all the different customers you're working with?
Yeah, this is a great question. So, and I think we are, so at the moment, so all of their companies and an ecosystem, they trying to be consistent. And it's not just to look consistent. It's about a user behavior, user experience, and keeping everything, so all the principles, all the visual principles consistent helps the end user to navigate better in more effective manner, and it helps businesses. So we do design systems, and regarding the size of the project, of course, and the product, of course, we use different techniques, but in general, we use like atomic design principles, built by Brad Frost, with some changes we've made, and so storing those components and different variations of the components, like states, like a button, etc. It is essential, and one of their functionality, which I see very helpful in Zeplin, and I didn't find that in any other products, this where so you can check where this component was used already. So let's imagine you have a button, or let's imagine you have 5 buttons. How can you know that all of these 5 buttons are used in the product? Because if you count that, so the number of components, you need to design that, you need to document that, you need to develop that, and it requires a lot of resources, time resources, efforts, money, etc. And one of their key principles of building consistent and strong design systems is to get rid of everything which doesn't work, everything which you don't use. And so using this small feature, but this is very powerful. So you can choose a component, see if you use that just once, why don't you replace that with something else and remove this component entirely from design system. So this is the stuff we use, and I think for storing documentation about design systems, it's very important. And also with the style guides, you can also always have a documentation which is up to date. Because it's not only user experience, it's also colors, visual stuff, even illustrations, some iconography. And if you have it in one source, in one area, you have a better chances that the final product looks consistent and works in a consistent manner.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I answered this question.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the point that you brought out there of having a design system. It's not just about keeping everyone on the same page or having this beautiful sort of document for people to refer to, but there's a lot of effort that goes into producing that. And so making sure that you're focusing on the right components to put into that design system is really crucial. So that I like that used in feature. I think people using Zeplin will be familiar with that, and in a style guide where you can see, okay, this component is used in these 6 screens, and that quickly identifies which are the high priority components, or maybe which ones you should replace for something else. So it's a quick snapshot to get that. I like that. I like that you brought that up. Michaela, how about at Bottle Rocket? What are ways that you guys have been able to consistently deliver projects for all your different customers?
Yeah, I think I resonate a lot with what Michael is saying, especially when it comes to the colors. When I first joined my first project at Bottle Rocket, I noticed that our colors were not necessarily consistent across all of our files for the project. So the first thing I did was looking into Zeppelin style guides and updating that to make sure we had one consistent red across the board and all the other colors were consistent and present throughout the entire project. And the devs really loved that. And one additional thing that I love that Zeppelin does is obviously translating the colors to code. And devs are able to give me an indication as to how I could change the naming conventions of my colors to better translate over to code for them. So I also love that as well, that Zeppelin gives that flexibility. So you can make sure that, the assets and what devs are taking away from the designs you're presenting to them really match and work well. So it was really great to kind of have that consistency. And then moving forward with future comps, I could just reference that and everything would be clean and more streamlined. So great experience there.
Yeah. Yeah. We can't have too many shades of red in one project, right?
Yeah, one is preferred.
One is preferred. Yeah, no, that makes sense. And again, back to this point of communicating within the context of design, being able to just call out colors by name just makes makes conversation more fluid, right?
Yeah, and I think it also helps when you have another designer onboarding on the project as well, because then they can also look to that style guide and also what Michael's saying, where they can look at components and see where they are on different screens. I think when you onboard a new designer, it's really helpful because then they can just look at Zeppelin and know where they are and how they can move forward. So it's great.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And that before we were kind of talking offline about, and Michael, I think this is what you were saying around design that works, or like taking design that actually, turns into a reality, so to speak. All this work that you're putting into design systems and Zeppelin files, and how that gets translated over to the development team to actually, bring to life.
Yeah, another good question. So what's the main challenges see at the moment? That we still have design work and development work a little bit disconnected. And when we finalize the design files, then we need to express that and make sure that the development team and developers, they understand it perfectly. So how it should look, how it should behave, etc. And a human mistake could happen, because as you mentioned previously, so we all use different, vocabulary and languages, etc. So their ideal scenario for us is when we design a button and this button automatically creates in the code. So it's not fully developed in our company yet, but we work in like design department and development department, we're working together to use their feature of connected components, which even right now allows us to do the next step in this direction. So when you create a button, you connect this button to like a storybook, right? And you can see if you change the color in this button, it will automatically, update. It will be automatically updated in the storybook without a need to, one person and another person to connect each other to, to share this information. And this method might help to reduce the number of human mistakes and speed up the process a lot. And when it comes to bigger companies, it's essential. I mean, so it's all we are talking right now. So the design, development, etc., it's all about money at the end of the day.
Right.
So, and if you imagine a team of like 100 designers, developers, and they need to release products, quickly, and there is no way to spend weeks to collaborate the communication and define the stuff. So ideally to have this software or this hub connector, which helps to do that and save time, money, efforts, and a lot of other resources.
Yeah. Yeah. When you were talking, I kind of imagined a bridge where there's something that sits in the middle and connects the efforts that's being put into the design side of things with the development side of the house, and just sits in between and allows those two to communicate more effectively together.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. And moreover, so you know that design, at least design industry, it's always evolving.
yeah.
And the tools in the software we use is not like a constant thing which we have. So we are in the game for around 10 years or so. So previously it was Photoshop, which we used to design screens and interfaces. Then it was Sketch.
Mm-hmm.
Now it is Figma. What happened next? So Sketch will introduce this, online collaboration functionality, and the part of a design world which will switch back to Sketch. Who knows? I mean, so this is also the potential problem you need to consider, and probably having a separate tool like where you can plug in different software, like design software, development software. Maybe this is a smart solution, especially for bigger companies, because once again, if you imagine a company with like 100,000 of people, switching a technology like imagine you have a part of design made in Zeplin, then you have a design made in Figma, and then the new design director decide to switch back to Zeplin. So you probably need to spend months to convert all the library, all the screens into the new software.
Yeah. Switching from Figma
it's
to
not very
Sketch, you're saying.
time efficient.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
Exactly. So, and it's still not perfect. So you can import a sketch file into Figma, but then you will find yourself in a situation where a part of components are just breaking, and you need to spend additional time to fix this.
Right. Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. And I think we'll continue to see, as you mentioned, we'll continue to see a lot of new innovations in the design tool space and the developer tool space. And so this again comes back to that point of sort of a source of truth, or this place where you can publish designs from regardless of which tool you're using, and have everybody know this is sort of the finalized version that we're ready to go bring to life. That's a really interesting point. Michaela, at Bottle Rocket, how are you guys kind of handling that? The fragmentation of different tools and different workflows with different customers and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think one thing that resonated with me that Michael said in his last statement was the concept of when things break and you have to go back and try and fix that. I think that Zeplin is a really good tool, because if you don't upload that new file to Zeplin, all of what you have on there is still the source of truth. So I definitely, when things break within my files, when I'm transitioning into different softwares, I can look at Zeplin and be like, okay, this is how the design should look. And I can go back and fix it to make sure it matches that. I think that also, in terms of having it as a source of truth, on some projects where we have a lot of designers and experienced architects on the same project, sometimes we might not have the time to sync up with each other. So one thing we also do is we will create maybe an internal Zeppelin project where we all can share together and decide and make sure that the design is where we want it to be. And then we can upload it to like a public Zeppelin project where the client gets eyes on it. So we can kind of establish our own source of truth internally in an internal project, and then bring that into a larger source of truth for everyone as a whole. What I also think is great is that the links you can have with a screen, so the link that Zeppelin can give you for each, the project manager will put in a ticket as a source of truth on how the devs can execute on that specific feature. And I love that regardless of if you update that comp, the link still stays the same. So that becomes a consistent source of truth for devs as well. because they know that regardless of whatever updates I make to the design, that link is a reliable resource of what they need to execute. So I just think that's a wonderful aspect of it as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool. So in both internally, there's sort of iteration that happens, and then publishing internal, and then also externally. That makes a lot of sense. Are you guys using any like integrations with Slack or Jira to kind of keep everybody on the same page there, and help with all those different tools that you're using?
Yeah, so when I was on my first project, I don't think that the Jira feature was necessarily fully established, but I was super excited about it when I heard talks that it was coming out because I always love the idea of looking at a comp and you know what ticket it's attached to or what it correlates to. But one we did use was the Slack integration. So that was really helpful because it notified my PM when I had uploaded all of the comps for a specific feature. She would see that notification in Slack that I had done it, and then she knows to go ahead and take it and move it into Jira tickets. So yeah, those integrations are super helpful. And I think, again, it just adds to the efficiency of how we work because since Zeplin's able to integrate into these tools we already use, like Slack and Jira, it just makes it overall a lot easier and it's just awesome.
Awesome. Well, any other final comments that either of you guys want to make? Any other questions that we want to throw in before we wrap up?
No, I don't think there's anything. Zeplin's just a great tool and I'm excited to continue using it here at Bottle Rocket.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mm.
Well, Michael, Michaela, thanks so much for coming on. We covered a lot of, hopefully just a good conversation to help people understand how you guys are using it at your respective agencies, how it's helpful for your teams, and look forward to continuing the discussion as we move forward. So thanks again for coming on.